a little bit. That's my wife.
Welcome into the live stream here from McCready and Siskey, powered by Rain Total Body Fuel. I'm Neal. That's Tyler. Going to hit the button here in just a minute. Going to be a little shorter show than what you're used to, in large part because I screwed something up today and I'm still in scramble mode. So, is what it is.
All good, man.
Full transparency. So, is what it is, right?
It is
what it is. What it is.
It'll still be a good show, though.
It still will be a good show.
We got all kinds of
Tyler's
fun
got all sorts of sports contact, and between the Ole Miss basketball coaching search and I got sucked into this damn Murdoch trial a little bit. I'm not as up to this. Like Aaron Rodgers, I have no idea. A lot of the things in here I have no idea. I'm going to learn as other people learn today, but that's okay.
That's it. Good stuff, though, man. We got. We're going to see. We've had some guests on the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
So we got like 2 weeks worth of hot takes ready to cut loose.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Barrett says, is Beard the coach or not? I don't think so. I do not think Ole Miss is going to hire Chris Beard.
Okay.
There you go.
I haven't
There's
talked to you
news.
about that lately.
No.
I haven't been following it like a dedicated fan would.
I don't think they're hiring him.
Without getting into it, because we could get into this thing for a while, but I told you this weekend, I actually took some time and thought about it from, the 1,000-foot view, no fans. If I was actually having to hire someone, it would be, first of all, just like a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today, it's very important to know all the facts.
Yes.
And nobody that's talking about it, writing a tweet or writing an article, really knows all the facts. Does that make sense? There's
Sure.
always something in there that you don't know. But if the facts, if it is what I think they are, at my alleged opinion would be of them, it would be very difficult for me to hire him if I was an AD. But not because of what he's done, but as much of where the fan base at Ole Miss is in basketball. I go to the games. I go to a lot of the games. Matter of fact, I would venture to say I go to more Ole Miss basketball games than 99% of the fan base.
That is true.
All right.
Yep.
I pretty much go to every home game. I did not go to the last one because I had something to do, but I've been to almost every home basketball game.
You were the only person who didn't show up.
Right. I was there. I got my spot in section 204. I sit up the top. Nobody messes with me. But it would be, you have to, when you're making this decision, you got to figure out, is the juice worth the squeeze? I agree. I think from a basketball standpoint, it's a no-brainer. But how much of your outside the basketball stuff, how much hurt are you doing to the brand and to donor, to your support? And that's what you need. And so I don't know. I probably would be difficult for me if I was an athletic director to hire him. Would not be difficult at all from a fan standpoint.
Sure.
But from actually having to put your ass on the line for it, yeah, that would be very difficult. It's a difficult decision either way. You can't win either way. The way you hire him, you can't win. If you don't hire him, you can't win.
We'll start our show. I'll just say this. I would have, had I been Ole Miss, and to say that I'm not Ole Miss and that Ole Miss is not me is an understatement of gigantic proportions. I mean, the day that anyone at Ole Miss ever comes to me for advice will be the day that hell freezes completely over.
Right.
I would have gone hard down the Will Wade road. I would have gone so far down the Will Wade road that the league would have had to stop me. I would have hired Will Wade even if he were going to get 6 more months of a show cause.
Yeah, if it was anything less than a 2-year show cause, I would have. I agree with you on that.
He's the guy I would have hired. I understand,
but I don't know I don't know. So
and I don't know. I don't either. If I were Ole Miss, I would be very fearful of hiring a mid-major who comes in.
It's potluck. And
it's the problem for them, and I don't know that they get it. This is not a criticism. We'll go quick. I promise.
Yeah, no, you're good.
The thing about Ole Miss that I think hurts them a little bit is that the people who went there, it's funny coming from me, the people who went there love it in a way that is hard for a lot of people to explain.
Yeah, kind of like the way people that went to Auburn like Auburn.
I guess.
It's tough for people to understand that outside of that market.
Yeah, and so the people who went there and now work there, I think they don't. I think when they go to the arena, for example, I just think they just see the good.
Yeah.
And it's not a negative, except I don't know that like they see what someone like me sees when I'm at the arena the last 2 years, where I'm like, man, this place is dead. Y'all got problems. I mean, y'all got problems.
Yeah.
And I just don't think they see it like that. And I think they're so flatlined right now that you bring in some mid-major and he doesn't have a whale of a recruiting class, really. I mean, I'm sure that On 3 and 247 are going to write that every recruit, every transfer portal is great because they're going to be they are going to take this new coach and kiss that ass because they're so, please give me the access. And I get it. I understand it. I can't say I've never done that before. But that's what's coming. And yet, when November rolls around, if they get off to another shaky start and lose to next year's version of Samford and North Alabama, people are going to go, oh, here we go again. And I don't know that when you could have hired Chris Beard, when you maybe could have hired Will Wade, when maybe you could do other things and you hire some no-name mid-major, it's just tough to do here.
Yeah, I would. I mean, it's a no-win situation. There literally is no. Regardless of the decision that is made, and that's why he gets paid the big bucks to make those decisions. Regardless of the decision that is made, whether it's Beard, whether it's Wade, or whether it's a mid-major, there is going to be a section of your fan base, and a rather large section of your fan base, that's going to be displeased with your decision.
Sure.
This is truly one of the most non-win situations.
The difference with
with
Wade and Beard, just from a basketball standpoint, is that they're proven winners.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
So when you go hire the mid-major, not a proven winner, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
And yet, there's going to be a section of your fan base that are excited about that, but there's going to be a large section of your fan base that's not. Right.
Right. Sure.
And so it's just you can't win.
Well, you can win. You win by winning.
You win by winning. But you know what I'm saying?
You win by winning. I mean,
I'm talking about the initial decision.
Yeah, I get it. That's what I mean. I don't know that they completely grasp how irrelevant they are right now. How many people are just checked out. Like they played a basketball game the other night. I had so many people go, I didn't realize they were playing.
Yeah. It's a good team too.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. There's your Ole Miss basketball update.
Welcome into another edition of McCready and Siskey, powered by Rain Total Body Fuel. I'm Neal McCready. That's Tyler Siskey here on this Thursday, March the 2nd. Thank you for making us a part of your week. We will just tell you for next week, we'll be doing a Monday show, and then there won't be a second show next week because I'm going to the SEC tournament, working on some SEC Ole Miss basketball stuff, and then I'm taking my son on a quick little excursion.
Yeah, I'm trying to go on a trip too, so me and you may have to talk about that following Monday too, so I got to figure that out.
Yeah.
Hey, before we get going, we just talked about it too. We did get a super chat from a first time super chat, and I love the screen name. That's why I was over here laughing. Siskey Burna. That's the gun that Rich Rod has.
Yeah.
Says, Neal, you got us Kiffin, get us Wade. So you're on the clock, Neal. They want you to go get him Wade. Or Siskey Burna wants you to go get him Wade.
First of all, thank you for the super chat, Siskey Burna. But I don't think I can get you Will Wade. I don't think I can. I mean, yeah, I don't like my chances whatsoever to get you Will Wade. Not any.
Come on, Neal.
If it were up to me, that's who I probably would hire.
You're an agent of the stars.
The whole Kiffin thing's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, the whole people do the "you got Kiffin." I'm like, no, I didn't. And the show played a role. I think
it's a good measure, in my opinion, because I was the one getting fired while your ass was doing that. By the way,
yeah.
But in my opinion, I think your show is a pulse of the fanatics of the fan base at Ole Miss. Your Oxford Exxon podcast.
Oh, you think ours is more the fanatics?
I think people who listen are fans or invested.
Yeah.
Not I shouldn't say fanatics and crazy fanatics.
Yeah.
More of fans. So I think that's a gauge of the passion of your Oxford Exxon podcast.
Maybe so.
So there you go. All right, let's get this thing started.
Before we do, let me tell you, we're brought to you each and every show. This is episode 61 of the big show here. We're brought to you by Rain Total Body Fuel. 300 milligrams of natural caffeine, BCAAs, electrolytes, zero sugar. It's got what you need to push the limits and achieve your goals. Check them out on Instagram at Rain Body Fuel to learn more.
Our good friend, big fan of the show, Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, I didn't know where you were going. Yeah, okay.
Our good friend, big fan of the show. Why not? Comes out of his darkness retreat and has the most bizarre interview with Aubrey Marcus that I have maybe ever witnessed in my life. It was one of those that I was looking for. It was on YouTube. I actually came across it last night. So I was it was like, what's he saying about, coming out of darkness? I was curious. And I learned a few things out of that interview. One is I'm definitely not as deep of a thinker as these two guys are. That was the most, again, bizarre. The guy was asking a question. Aubrey Marcus was asking a question.
Okay.
The question lasted, as him asking the question, would last somewhere between 5 to 7 minutes of asking the question. And you're like, and it was just all over the place. And it was like an hour and a half long. And it sounded like you were getting a massage and they play the music where you're supposed to relax. Everybody was talking like this. And it was a really slow tempo. I mean, I was like,
were they smoking dope?
Dude, I don't know. They didn't appear that way.
Okay.
Physically looking at them, but they definitely sounded like it. But
you ever gone to get massages? Seriously.
Where's this one?
No, have you ever gone to get a massage?
I gotta be careful on this podcast.
No, a real not a happy ending massage, a massage.
I have gotten a massage before, yes.
I always fall asleep.
I don't, because when I do go, because I have really bad back spasms from when I fell.
Yeah.
So I'm usually knotted up and I need to get knots out.
So
it hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not mine's not I've never gotten an enjoyable massage.
When I was marathoning, towards the end of marathoning, I would include that like in the final 3 or 4 weeks, just to keep, because you were doing the last few weeks of marathon training, like the last 2 weeks, you kind of you go down.
Yeah.
But the 3 or 4 weeks right before you cycle out to get ready, the Sunday run is like 17 miles, then 18 miles, then 19 miles, then 20 miles. So you're doing a 19-mile run one Sunday and a 20-mile run the next. And so your body's just like, what are we doing, right?
Right.
And you're running 3 days in between. And so I would include that I would get one on Friday on those weeks. And I'd fall asleep every time. I'd wake up and it was over and I was like, son of a bitch.
Well, if you watch this interview, like, you need to put this interview on the next time you go get a massage and you'll fall asleep too. I literally was he literally covered like 3 topics. what he did. They talked about the actual darkness retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes into this thing where he's like, the third day I woke up and I was retired. The fourth day he went through the day thinking what I would do if I was retired. The fourth day if I was still playing. And then it comes to the end of the show and he basically is like, I haven't made a decision. I'll make a decision sooner rather than later, basically, But, it's a really.
Don't you think he knows what he's doing?
Yeah. Yes. All right. So
it's like I hate when kids are like, well, I'm going to take these 5 visits and then decide on what where you're
already
going.
know.
You already know where you're going.
So that's why I wanted to talk about it, right? Is look, at the end of the day, he has nothing left to prove. All right.
No, of course not.
Nothing left to prove. He's arguably the greatest to ever play. I know we all say Tom Brady, which me included, but he's up there. If he's not, he's in the discussion. He's a phenomenal quarterback.
Yes.
So you have nothing to prove. So at the end of the day, you just got to ask yourself, because if he comes back and plays and he's committed to it and does the work, he's going to be a top 5. He's a top 5 talent in the league right now at 38, 39 years old, whatever the hell he is, 40. I don't know how old he is.
39, I think.
The question is, can I put the commitment physically and mentally to play another season? If the answer is yes, then he's going to play. If the answer to that is no, then he's going to retire. And it comes down to, it's the same thing that happened with Tom Brady. Okay, athletes are different, especially elite athletes are different. Mm-hmm. They're built different in their mind.
Sure.
Can you deal with not being able? Can you deal mentally? And that's a big, into my mental health. Can you mentally, health-wise, survive with not competing and playing when you know you're physically capable of doing it? That's the question. If the answer is yes, play. If the answer is no, quit. Tom Brady did it. He realized his skill set declined. He's not physically able to do it anymore. It's not mentally, it's physically. So he shut it down. So there's that. But a very, very crazy interview. If you want to go to sleep, I would encourage everyone not to put it on while you're driving, because you may not make it through the rest of the drive.
Sort of
You'll drift off and fall off the side. All right. I want to move to this. This actually came up late in the day, and I wanted to thank, I can't remember who it was. So whoever you are, I want to thank you. Somebody posted this link on your board today when I was on there, like eating my lunch. I knew they were doing this. This is the NCAA, and I was waiting on it. I just hadn't seen anything come across. So the NCAA has been pushed for years now to be very transparent about their data on the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so last week, unbeknownst, and nobody's reported on this. No one has reported on this, and if they have, it's been buried. The NCAA released their transfer data from 2021 and the 2021-22 school year. So this data would have been, if you're an Ole Miss fan on here, this would have been the dart and trig class. That's part of this data. And so I start reading it. I'm curious because this is the first data since immediate eligibility has come into play. And so I start reading it, and I get more and more pissed off the more I read this thing, because I feel like I know what the intention of this data release was. And the first thing you learn, this thing should be studied, by the way. If you know a statistics professor or somebody that teaches stats, this should be studied. It really should. This should be an example. And the one thing, I took a lot of stats class. I know I look like a dumbass and all that stuff, but I'm actually a pretty smart guy, especially in math. Took a lot of stats classes in college. The first thing you learn in statistics is you can manipulate numbers any way that you want them to look. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's take baseball. We're big baseball guys, right? The problem is most everybody is a baseball fan, so they can understand this. If I tell you a guy hits 400 for a career, you're going to be like, shit, first ballot Hall of Famer. You're not even going to think twice about it.
Of course not.
But I can also come to you and say, hey, I got this guy, man. He failed at his job 6 out of 10 times.
Okay, sure.
They're both the same stat.
Right.
One makes you think differently. But if you're a baseball fan, you can kind of see through the bull crap and go, wait a minute. He failed 6 out of 10 times, so you're telling me he hit it 400? Oh, he's the first ballot Hall of Famer. Well, the people reading this are not the baseball fan. The people reading this don't know how to discern between the numbers. So what they do is they bounce back and forth in this article between percentages and actual numbers. Okay, so they start off, they say, we're releasing this because to create transparency on the transfer portal. All right. And I quote, in Division I, 20,911 student athletes entered the transfer portal in 2022, an increase over the 2021 year that totaled 17,781. So you're like, okay, it was an increase, but not a lot.
4,000.
It's 15% increase from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, pretty significant.
That's significant.
Yeah, okay.
But if you're reading the numbers, you're like, yeah, okay. Then this is where they get me. 2 sentences later, when they're wrapping up this deal, they say in one sentence in a separate paragraph, while 13% of all Division I student athletes were entered into the transfer portal in 2022, 7% of all Division I student athletes successfully transferred to an NCAA program after the portal entry. So you're looking at it and you're like, okay, 13%, 7%, there's a 6% difference, not that big of a deal. But let me read the exact same thing to you and put the actual numbers in there.
Okay.
Because this is where they start bouncing back and forth between percentages.
Okay.
Now, what if I read the sentence to you like this? 20,911 Division I student athletes entered into the transfer portal in 2022. 11,251 Division I student athletes successfully transferred.
It's totally different because now it tells me that 10,000 people who got into the portal did not find a new home successfully.
It'll be 9,660 to be exact.
Yeah. I was rounding.
But
I was rounding.
I know, but I'm saying they are jumping back and forth in these percentages to try to do things,
they're trying to trick you.
Trying to trick you a little bit
of course.
for their deal. Since we talked about basketball earlier, basketball seems to be the one that's crazy to me, the stats. Okay. In 2022, 1,649 men's Division I basketball players entered into the transfer portal.
Okay.
A slight decrease from 2021 of 1,687. 84% of those student athletes were on aid at their departing school. Okay. So 1,385 kids that were on scholarship in Division I basketball.
Okay. Entered the portal. Okay. All right.
Just to give you a perspective, which people don't understand how basketball works. There are 13 scholarship players in Division I.
That's correct.
Okay. There
13.
are 358 teams.
Right.
106 and a half basketball teams on scholarship entered the portal.
Yep.
That's 30% of all scholarship players entered the portal.
Yep.
Okay. They don't want to tell you that. They don't want to tell you that, hey, 1,385 scholarship players entered the portal. Oh, but there's only 4,654 scholarship players in basketball. They don't want to tell you that.
That is true.
All right. Now, here's where we're coming in. This is why roster management, they're trying to hide the roster management issue, right? And then they get down to, let's talk about FBS football. Oh, by the way, of the ones that transferred, 262 kids. They go percentages again, but they don't tell you that 262 college basketball players that were on scholarship no longer have aid. They don't want to tell you that.
Almost surprised that number's not higher, but yes, that's a massive number.
That's 20 teams.
Yeah,
20 teams worth of kids no longer on scholarship, lost their opportunity to go to college. They don't want to say that. That's what they're trying to hide.
Right.
They're trying to hide roster management and loss of financial aid for education.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the end of the day, we can call it what we want to, but most kids that go to college on football scholarship can't afford college on their own.
Sure.
In football, I here's the sports I know about: football and men's basketball.
Well,
those are sports I know about.
And sometimes you have kids in sports that are at schools where if it weren't for sports, forget the money. If it weren't for sports, they wouldn't be able to get in.
Correct, because they get get a sliding scale.
And
basically.
so they get there, and then they hit some adversity, and they bolt, and they don't land anywhere. And not only are they not playing basketball anymore, but you just threw away an education to SMU or Cal or whatever.
Exactly. And then it goes on and talks about football at the very end, FBS football. All right. How about this number? In FBS, 2,918 players entered the portal in 2022. Again, this is not this year because it's probably going to increase as well. This is last year. All right. 1,900. Then they go to 67% of those. All right. But 1,955 of those players were on scholarship. That's 18% of all scholarship players in FBS went into the portal. Not this year, a year ago.
Right.
18%. That's an average Last year, again, not this year, last year, there were 129 FBS qualifying teams. That's an average of 15.15 scholarship players per every school.
It's unbelievable.
Now, don't you remember, like, not that long ago where we had this number called 25?
Yep.
And we were wondering why the scholarship numbers were going down. It's the same thing I told them in 2018 when you do this. They don't want to listen. But you can't replace 25. You can't lose 15 kids a year, okay? Over the course of 4 years, that's 60 players. That's damn near your whole team over a 4-year period.
So how many of those 1,951 successfully?
All right, so here's what they claim. I call bullshit on this too, by the way. But this is the numbers they receive, and I'm sure but I find this one hard to believe.
Okay.
They did say 1,833. They went 67%, and then they jumped to 1,833.
Of the 1951?
No, they don't give you the 1950. They give you 67%. I had to do that.
Okay.
That Siskey math.
Yeah, I don't buy that number.
Okay. They said 1,833 athletes received athletics aid at their new NCAA school. All right. So that would mean only 122 scholarship players were left in the portal I don't buy that.
I don't buy that.
I think they are, in my opinion, skewing these numbers, and this is how they're skewing this number. I can tell you one here at Ole Miss that happened to a kid at Ole Miss that was on full scholarship here went in the portal, wasn't playing, went in the portal. No one picked him up, but a Division II school did, and gave him $500 in books.
So that's technically aid.
That's technically aid.
Right. That'd be like if Carson went D2 as a soccer player. My son, for those that don't know, I'm sorry for not supposed to talk about family, but I do anyway. If he goes D2 at some place and they offer him books and a part of room and board, he's technically getting aid, even though he's paying full tuition.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like in football, I don't know the other sports numbers, but in football, Division II gets 36 scholarships, as opposed to FBS, they get 85. Everybody's on full.
And really, the way those coaches do that is they take 36 times whatever the full cost is, and they have that bit of money, and they parcel it out.
Yeah, they just divide it however they want to make a full, whatever the value of a full scholarship is. But anyway, I read that, and I guess my point is the whole point of this was to be transparent. And the whole article was written not being real. It was basically manipulating the numbers to make it look good and beneficial, where they didn't really tell the whole truth. They didn't lie, but again, they just skewed the truth. If they manipulated the truth, and that's very depressing to see that because it basically told me everything I already knew. Nothing surprised me. Matter of fact, to give you what's scary is the number really is 48%. It was 67 before the immediate eligibility came into play, just so you know.
Oh, wow.
So that's down 15%. All right. Let's shift gears a little bit.
Before we do, I want to tell you we're brought to you by Walk On Sports Bistro. They put everything they've got into bringing you game day with the taste of Louisiana. Dig into their mouth-watering, made-from-scratch Louisiana cuisine, po' boys, gumbo, voodoo shrimp, plus fan favorites like juicy burgers, fresh salads, all in front of 70-plus TVs, 40-plus ice-cold beers on tap. So NCAA tournament getting ready to start. Conference tournaments have started. The women's tournament is going on as we speak, the SEC tournament in South Carolina. So lots of stuff on the TVs here over the next couple of weeks. So if you're in Oxford or Ridgeland, stop by Walk-Ons. Check out some basketball. Get yourself a beer and appetizer or a meal, and make sure that you tell the people at Oxford or Ridgeland how much you appreciate them sponsoring McCready and Siskey.
It's my favorite. We're in my favorite period coming up, like March and April.
Yeah.
Of, like, I guess not football sports,
non-football time,
because we got NCAA basketball tournament, got the Masters.
Sure.
I love it. So I'm excited about my setup in my man cave being with the four. Don't think those TVs were. I'll have a game on each TV. It'll be fun.
You get one on True, one on TBS, one on TNT,
CBS.
And
that's all the fourth one.
Yeah, the CBS will be the fourth one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about that. And I used to have that.
I haven't even looked to see what happened in the women's tournament today. I just haven't looked.
Yeah,
been busy.
All right. I don't know if anybody's ever talked about this, matter because I don't know if anybody's ever done a podcast that had this duty. I think you knew this, but I was the NFL liaison for probably the last half of my career.
I did know that.
And that's how I know so many scouts and NFL people because that was my job. And with the combine that started, I guess they started running and everything today, going on. Wanted to give the fans kind of an idea of what goes on through an NFL scout process and how it goes year round. And we can talk about it and talk about everything as it goes through. But we'll start it in August because that's kind of when the new year starts, I guess unofficially. But so when you start camp at the very beginning of fall camp is when all the NFL teams, and if you're a place like, I was at Alabama, I was at Ole Miss, if you're an SEC team, you're going to see all 32 teams pretty much in the first week to 2 weeks of camp. They're all going to come in there.
Yeah.
All right. Most of the times it's 5 and 6 a day. All right. And when they show up, so let's show up the first day of fall camp, they already know who your upcoming draft eligible players are. And they have already done the film work off of their year prior. So they've kind of already done their work in the summer, and they're all off time with those guys. And they come in and they meet with whoever the liaison is, which was me here or at Alabama or wherever, and they get the background, character, get your thoughts on the kid, off the field, any issues. They really start. That's when they start doing their primary dig on kids. They're going to meet with the trainer for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes in that visit. And so we would have this whole day kind of planned. It was almost like Groundhog Day every day. They would see me, then they would go to Pat, and he would discuss
Pat Jernigan,
and you would discuss injuries. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions in the whole thing. No trainer is hiding injuries. You can't hide medical records. Okay, so they're going to be very honest up front. This is the injury. This is what happened. Things like that. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, they hid this injury from." You don't hide shit like that. You can't. You can't hide medical records. You go over the health and all that stuff, and then they meet with a strength coach, and they want to talk about work ethic, not necessarily numbers as much as they do, because the strength coach probably knows the players better than anybody in the building.
Yeah, spends more time with them.
Spends more time with them, so they get an hour with those guys, and then they come out to practice. If they have time, they will meet with the position coach then to ask about some things. If not, and usually we'll meet with the position coach if it's a really good player. Okay, so like I know when I was here at Ole Miss, one of my last class, I know one of the classes when we had AJ Brown and DK Metcalf. Well, everybody was going in and wanted to meet with Peeler, right? Because that was could knock out two birds with one stone, two top draft picks. So they'll meet with a position coach and all that stuff, and then they'll leave, and you will not, and they'll go to practice, and they won't watch them do anything in practice but body type. Okay, so they will, what they call body type in the kid. And then they'll leave, and you will not see them again until they come do their in-season visit, okay? So an in-season visit, they're going to come in and get any update that you have, how's he playing, yada, 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 how's he doing, yada, 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 and they're going to watch the new game film. A lot of them now with technology have done their stuff, can do their stuff in advance now. Some old school guys still like to do it in person, but they're going to come. They'll usually try to correlate that with a game or practice and watch him in a game or practice. And it's not necessarily how he plays, but it's how he reacts.
Yeah.
Okay. They want to see moments of adversity, how you react and things like that. They will watch a game, and then they will, at the very, very, very end of the season. Okay. What I would do as an NFL liaison is I would call, because I shouldn't say you don't. Most schools don't allow you to discuss 3-year players with NFL scouts. Like at Alabama, that was a no-no. We're not talking about, like when I was there, we can't talk about Amari Cooper. When Amari Cooper's a 3rd-year player, he's not drafted. I'm saying, like,
right.
It's got to be a guy that's a 4-year player. Some schools do. Like if you know the guy's going to draft, like a C.J. Stroud, a Bryce Young, coaches will be okay with it. It's those 2nd, 3rd round guys that most schools try to protect. Now, Luke here, he allowed me to talk about those guys. So, but some schools do not.
Okay.
All right. But part of that process is because I did that, I could also call them and be like, hey, can you tell me what grade that you have on AJ? What grade that you have on DK? And they would give me a round grade. And I would compile that information. So when we met with the players, the very next day after the season's over with, you meet with your You meet with DK, you meet with AJ, you meet with those guys and discuss, are you going to go out or are you not? Here are the grades that you have. And I remember I got, on both those kids, I got 17, 18 grades back. Some organizations did not want to do it, but I mean, I got enough to know you get 18 grades back, you know, kind of where they're at. And I remember when we met with DK Metcalf, like AJ Brown, we told him it's probably best that you go. You know, we've talked to all the NFL scouts. The only thing that you're really lacking from being an elite top round pick is overall speed. I mean, how many more balls can you catch, right? How much more production can you do? There's nothing you can improve here. And so if he stayed another year, he was still gonna get drafted in the same place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
DK was different. My advice to DK was to actually come back to school. Was really worried. DK was coming off his neck injury. He was not going to be able to work out for scouts.
Got hurt in Little Rock and didn't finish the season. Yeah.
A lot of medical concerns on him. And I got a lot of grades back on DK from teams that were not going to draft him at all. Undrafted free agent grades. A ton back. Okay. DK just happened to be a freak of nature. And between the time we had that conversation on Friday after Thanksgiving to draft day, he improved his physical health so much that he passed, you know, he changed minds in that time frame. But my worry with DK was this. It was a business decision, because what I explained to DK on my side of it was, hey, if you come back here and you play one more year, you eliminate all these doubts, you're going to be a top 10 pick. And the money that you make as a top 10 pick, it's a 4-year guaranteed contract. You'll never be able to make that money up in your career ever, because you're going to get, you know, $15, $20 million as opposed to $2 million. You're losing 18. And the kid's like, well, I want to get paid. Well, we're paying you $18 million to come back, essentially. But with DK, my biggest concern with him from a business decision, and obviously he's proven right? I mean,
it's worked out.
It worked out great.
Of course.
But my concern with him was if he wasn't drafted in the first 2 rounds, none of his money was guaranteed.
Right.
And he could show up and get hurt one more time and he could be cut.
Right.
With no money. He was the last pick in the 2nd round. The last pick. So that gave him 2 years of guaranteed football. Does that make sense?
Of course.
That was my only. If you're a first 2 rounds, get out of here and go. But my concern with the grades that I had, that he may have been a 3rd or 4th round pick. I thought that was as good as he'd ever do. But obviously he's a genetic freak and improve. But it was.
Yeah, I remember like seeing him in March of that draft cycle and going, oh my God. Like, he's always was a freak, but he wasn't that kind of freak. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, he didn't look like that when he was in high school and early college.
He was, you know, I can tell the story now. I don't care. We passed on him at Alabama. He came to camp, and he was stiff, couldn't change directions, skinny. I could jump, had some explosive twitch in there. You saw the explosive twitch. He was not as fast as DK is now. He wasn't that guy then. And we passed on him. It worked out. You know, we took a pretty good player. I mean, it was him or Calvin Ridley at the time, right? So,
yeah, sure.
I mean, it all worked out, but it worked out great for him. But I have never in my life, there are 3 players that come to mind. It's DK Metcalf, Gerald Everett, who's now the tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers, and DeMarcus Ware, who is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
That after their initial grade at that age, just physically matured and is such a genetic freak that you couldn't deny it, improved that much after, you know, a junior in high school. He's just and he's a great kid. I love him to death. He competitor, the whole deal. But and then the last thing on this is then you meet with underclassmen like we talked about. And then the Senior Bowl comes up, right? And that's kind of their first experience with NFL coaches, and it's like a mini combine experience for them a little bit, to where they start meeting with the NFL executives. And then you have where we're at this week, which is the combine, which is the most crazy process things I've ever seen in my life. It's insane. The most insane part is the interviews. I'm not going to name players or organizations, but organizations will get in there with owners, GMs, coaches, and they will bring players in. And they will ask some of the most absurd unprofessional questions to get a rise out of you, get a response out of you. They just ask weird things. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know what the purpose of it is. But I know players that I've coached that have gone into those meetings and have got up and walked out and told the coaches and the owners to go F themselves. It was that unprofessional. Some of the questions that they got.
Like what?
I can't even repeat it.
Well, give me a theme.
One coach asked a player, coach
Okay.
asked a player that was in a room if he would go, he liked to chase tail, and he didn't use that word.
Right.
He used the word that starts with a P.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I want you to go chase tail with me. You good with doing that? Because I like to do that with my players, and was being dead serious. And he was like, excuse me? Yeah, I want you to go. That's what I like to do with my position group. Is this? And then he's like, is this an interview for the organization? Because and basically he says, if this is what this organization is about, I don't want to be a part of it, and got up and left. And then that team turned around and leaked it that he walked out of the interview, right?
Of course.
And now it gets, Schefter gets on it, right? I pronounced his name right that time?
Adam Schefter.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
There
Left
you
out
go.
the end. They report, he walks out of these interviews.
You always call him Schnefter.
Yeah. Chef. I call him Schefner.
Schefner.
Yeah. But they walk out of these rooms and they're like, they start basically blackballing them in the draft so they will fall to where they want to pick them. It's a game, man.
Oh, sure. Of course it is.
It's a big gamesmanship thing. And they kill these kids in the process by asking stupid. They try to piss them off so they will get that reaction so now they can leak that he left the interview or the interview went bad or whatever it was. And that everybody, you know how the draft is, everybody starts going,
oh, sure.
And they start dropping. So that happens there. I wish more people would talk about that. And then you have pro day, individual workouts, there's another gamesmanship, individual workouts. All right, let's say I want to draft you, Neal. I want to draft you in the third round. But that may be my first pick in the draft, or that's where I got you. But I'm worried that teams in the second round are going to take you. I've seen at multiple places after pro day or before pro day, usually it's after, they want to draft you, and they'll call and say, hey, who are you working out with? Well, I got to, I'm just using one as an example. I got to work out with the Seahawks. Okay, well, that's who they're worried about. When's your workout? Next Tuesday. What do you think about doing a workout with us on Monday? Okay, cool. What's the kid going to say? No.
Right.
So they bring in everybody, and they will wear that kid out.
So that Tuesday
they'll keep him up at night at dinner all night late. And so he's tired, and so he doesn't perform well against the other team that's coming in the next day, and they won't take him.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens all the time. And nobody talks about it. It happens
That's sad.
all the time. And I was reminded of all this. I saw Gronkowski was on a podcast or something, and he was talking about how when he was so done when he got to the Patriots on his visit. He got out when they took him out. He gets hammered or whatever. He passes out on the floor, and they're like, go in the room. And he's passed out on the floor, and he's like, I'm over with it. I'm done with it. You either draft me or you're not. And he, like Bill O'Brien said, drew up a play or something. He goes, I don't know what the play is. Just throw me the damn ball. You know what I mean? I'll catch, but it's just the whole process is very weird. And it starts, I guess, right now. So it's going to get heated up with the quarterbacks here shortly.
We're brought to you by Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating, different names, same great products, same great services, same great people. If you live in Oxford, Batesville, Tupelo, or the surrounding area, call Comer 662-801-1777. If you live in Hernando, Memphis, South Haven, that area, call the people at Southern 662-429-4429. So Anthony Richardson is moving up the mock drafts. How much do you buy Anthony Richardson as perhaps the first overall pick?
I don't buy any of it, but I want to explain why more than anything. Okay, so here are your 4 first-round, I guess, capable quarterbacks, right? You have Bryce Young, you have C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and I guess Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the problem. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, which will buy you a cup of coffee the next time you come to the office. None of these guys are like slam dunk, you're not getting, now next year, Caleb Williams, different story, but you're not getting a slam dunk number 1 overall pick quarterback out of any of these guys because they all have question marks. All right, Bryce Young has an arm strength and a size problem. All right, C.J. Stroud has an accuracy problem and production problem. And what I mean by production is what has he done besides the one big game? All right, Will Levis has all the tools, but he does have some accuracy issues, and he has a 22 production problem. And then you look at Anthony Richardson, he has a touch problem and he has a production problem. Well, the problem with these mock drafts and the way fans see everything, okay, and this is the way fans see everything. Fans don't view, they view strictly on production. Fans look to see what did this kid do as a college quarterback and how many yards did he throw for, what did he do? That's why if you go literally in order of what most people think, they literally go in the order of who had the best career in college. That's all. They don't look at any other attribute, but just how good. That's why Bryce Young, did he have a good college career? Yeah, won the damn Heisman Trophy, right?
Sure.
All right, next is C.J. Stroud. The reason that he's actually bumped up is because he had a really good game against Georgia. But they're not looking at the other 13 games that happened before that where he couldn't throw one in the flats. He was overthrowing everything. He struggled production-wise. Had a great team around him, then they won, but whatever. Will Levis had a great 2021, not very good 2022, right?
He's hurt.
But, I mean, production-wise.
Yeah, sure.
And then Anthony Richardson, nobody understands that because where's their production? But let me tell you.
The Richardson thing is crazy because if you just watch his Utah game, you're like sold.
But he still didn't throw for any touchdowns.
Then you watch his, like I was in Fayetteville, it was the day of the Ole Miss Arkansas game, and I was working on hot boards and columns about Lane Kiffin leaving and all that stuff. It's about a lost day. Jeez.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but I mean, I was ready. If it happened, I was ready to go. But I had on Vanderbilt, Florida in my hotel room that day. And man, oh man. Like, man, oh man. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
If the football gods had dropped into my hotel room that day at the Hilton Garden Inn in Fayetteville over there on Steamboat and said, hey, that guy, he might go number one. I would have said, man, y'all been drinking today. I would have said, wow. Did y'all just like walk over from Sassy's over there and just are y'all hammered? Why didn't you call me?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So I said all that to say this. If you don't have a guaranteed number one, like you're ready to risk your franchise on.
Sure.
If you look at just the capability of playing the position, do you know who has the strongest arm out of all of them?
Richardson.
Do you know who the best athlete is out of all of them?
Richardson.
Do you know who has the best body out of all of them?
Oh, yeah. Got me shit. We'd all pay to look like that for one day.
Who has the most upside out of all of them?
Richardson, probably.
So here's the only thing you're going to knack him on. Production, which he's probably got the worst production.
He's got the lowest floor.
Lowest floor, highest ceiling.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're not,
I mean, he might be Achilles Smith.
Could be. He could be
He could be Ryan Leaf.
Right? And I think this is why you get with Will Levis, you get all these Josh Allen comparisons because Josh Allen was the same way, right? Like he was the 13th pick or whatever. He was a mid-range pick, but there was a lot of question marks on him coming out of college too.
Yeah, of course.
Like because if everybody knew Josh Allen was going to be Josh Allen, he'd have been picked a lot earlier.
Yeah, he played at Wyoming, so you didn't really know
how it carries over.
Competition, quality of teammates, like who did he play with, what would happen when he played with NFL receivers, what would happen when he went against the NFL corners, all that stuff. You just didn't know.
Right. So if you don't have a slam dunk franchise guy, and I don't think there is in this class. Now, there's going to be one probably that turns into one, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I study quarterbacks as much as anybody that's ever does it. That's all I do. I mean, I actually do it for a living, okay? Nice living, do okay. I cannot tell you, if you put a gun to my head and you said, hey, Tyler, one of these four guys is going to be a franchise quarterback. Who is it? I don't know. Because any of them could, and all of them couldn't. I mean, it's literally a crapshoot. It's like, we talk about Mitch Trubisky because you're a Bears fan. It's not Mitch Trubisky's fault that he went number 2 overall. If you took Mitch Trubisky in the 4th round.
Man, I'm glad Carson's not here right now because you want to get him triggered. Start in on the
Mitch Trubisky deal.
We'll just start in on who they didn't take at number 2.
Right. All right, but let's look at that. They didn't take Patrick Mahomes, right? if anyone knew that Patrick Mahomes was going to be a $450 million quarterback, he'd be the first pick in the draft. There were question marks.
Of course.
Right?
It's why, frankly, it's why when people come, don't get me wrong, I don't do the ratings thing, don't want to do the ratings thing. I've told you I don't participate in the ratings thing.
Yeah, there's some interesting ones out there.
But when people go, yeah, y'all are idiots. Y'all missed that one. You missed that one. I'm like, okay, we did. You're right. They did. Rivals did. Rivals missed it. They got it wrong. How come you don't do this with NFL teams when they miss on this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy? How come you don't do that? Because unless you do that and admit that ranking human beings on potential is really hard.
Yeah, because it's pot luck. But I can see why he's going up, and he will continue to go up because there's no more padded games. Everything from here on out for Anthony Richardson is going to be right up his alley.
The underwear Olympics.
It's going to be right up his alley.
Yeah, and he's going to look awesome out there.
He's going to look better than every other quarterback in the draft starting, I guess, Saturday they throw.
Yeah.
So he's going to look better than every quarterback in the draft from Saturday until draft day.
Yeah, they're going to put him
he's going to continue to rise.
They're going to put him in a pair of shorts and one of those super tight
He's going to throw the ball freaking 85 yards, 90 yards.
And no one's going to hit him. And he's going to know no one's going to hit him. And he's going to know the throw that he's making. He's going to make
– it's scripted.
It's going to be, oh, my God, he's going to blow it up. His workout's going to be whew.
Yeah. So
– and NFL teams, and I get it, they're going to look at it and go, all right, we can coach him. And look, if they have meetings with him and he blows them away in the meetings and he gets up on the whiteboard or whatever and shows that he understands what he's looking at, and I think he probably does. He's coached for some – he's played for some pretty good coaches, Dan Mullen, Billy Napier. He gets a high character grade, and I've never really heard anything about him being like a bad dude or anything. And so, if he gets all of that, some NFL team's going to go, it's hard to find quarterbacks.
Yep.
And the Bears, I'll tell you this, the Bears, their hope at number one has to be that one of these guys, whether it's Richardson or Levis or Bryce or whatever, that one of these guys
wow somebody number one.
Well, becomes obviously the quarterback.
Yeah. I think it will. All right, before we run out of time, because it's time sensitive, I guess. Jalen Carter.
Yeah, for sure.
Had warrants for misdemeanors. He actually left Indianapolis. He was at the combine the day he was supposed to do his interviews. He leaves the combine, goes back to Georgia, was booked in jail, and released 16 minutes later. Posted $4,000 bond. I think it was 2 misdemeanors.
And he's back in Indianapolis.
At the combine. Yeah, this is rough. This goes back into making sure you know everything, what's going on, and the facts. I don't know the facts. I read the same things you guys do. It's just the whole situation's sad. Especially, obviously, I did not know all the individuals involved in this, but I know people that knew them firsthand. It's hard for everybody involved. It's a bad deal, man. The whole deal's a bad deal.
What you do know from police accounts is the young lady who died in the crash. You know that her blood alcohol content was very high.
It's like 0.19, I think is what I saw.
You know that it was late. You know that it was high speed. And from the police report, there's evidence that there was racing going on. And the allegation is that he was racing. The worst allegation, and again, it's an allegation, is that he allegedly left the scene, which is not what you would hope someone would do.
Yeah.
And so, he's also a young person, and I'm sure he was panicked. I don't know whether he was or was not impaired, whether there was whatever.
Yeah.
Here's the football question.
Yep.
Okay. We obviously, no one in the whole scheme of things, what happens to Jalen Carter's football career as opposed to the two young people who passed away, it's trivial.
Right.
But for the sake of this conversation, let's talk about the football career.
Okay.
There's a chance, it's kind of like the Will Wade thing, right? There's a chance that you don't know all the evidence when the draft rolls around. The Georgia State Police, who are investigating this, are probably not going to put the speed on it and go, hey, we got to get this done by the draft, guys.
Right.
How does this impact? This is a guy that was talked about going as high as number 2 in the draft.
Maybe
number 1. But most people think that someone will trade up and take a quarterback number 1. And that
it would have to take a non-trade for him to be 1.
Carter and Anderson will go 2, 3 in some order. That's the general consensus at this point. Does this impact a team's thought process?
It definitely could. They're going to dig into it, and that's why I was going over all that stuff. Dude, they're going to dig. They're going to find out everything. The fact, if you try to hide something from the NFL, it's not possible. They have private investigators on speed dial. I mean, probably some of them on their staff. Everything will be found out. Even if it's not reported yet, they will know all the facts. Do I think it could hurt him in the draft? I do, but not by a lot. I think he'll. At worst, he'll be a top 5 pick. I think still. He may slide a spot or 2, but I think he'll still be a top 5 pick at the end of the day. But like you said, it's just a terrible thing that happened for everybody involved. I mean, it's heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking.
Literally, the context of that is just they'd had a victory parade that day.
Yeah.
They had celebrated that day.
Yep. Sad, man. We'll switch gears before we get out of here because I know you wanted to talk about this. It'll be the last thing we go over before we get out of here. Killer Cam actually brought it up in the chat, so it's perfect timing.
Oh, yeah. How about that? It's like Killer was in on the production.
It's like he was in listening. We may have our mics hot. Deion Sanders has pissed off a lot of the Karens in the world about an interview he did on Rich Eisen's show. Now, this happened like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I say that maybe a week ago. I don't know. It's happened several days ago.
Okay.
And it was talked about briefly, and then it went away. And then we had more people with blue check marks that decided to chime in and bring it back up 6-7 days, like the news cycle had already passed. I don't always agree with Deion. I'm on Deion's side on this one. I think he was trying to make a joke.
Okay.
I took it how I took it. Tyler Siskey's opinion. So that'll buy you a cup of coffee if you come to Quick U Studios.
No, but you're pretty good with stuff like this. I mean, voice tone. I mean,
yeah.
he was. I mean, was he being dead serious, or was he having some fun with a longtime friend? Because he and Dan Patrick Rich Eisen are longtime friends.
So the whole point of the drill, they were asking, hey, what are your criteria? What you looking for in players? That was kind of the question, right?
Yeah.
So he starts with quarterbacks. He goes, we're looking for smart guys. Shocker, everybody does. It's like 2-parent homes, 3.5 GPA, really smart guys because they have to be the leader of men. He used that, which is okay, cool. And then he goes to offensive line. He says, we're looking for 2-parent homes and offensive linemen, strong male influence, but smart guys go that. And then he goes to try to make a joke, and somebody says, what about D-line? Okay. He is making a joke. He says, D-line is different, man. Single mamas, free lunch. Somebody wants to, go get theirs. Mama can't make the flight, whatever. He's making a joke, okay?
Yes,
so
very clearly.
I coach just so everybody understands how the inner workings of a football team work in college and not in high school, but in college and the NFL. All right? There are 2 rooms that are full of drama.
Wide receiver.
Number 1 is defensive line.
Okay.
If you're the D-line coach, like every D-line coach in America listening right now goes, yep, preach it, brother. I'm talking about it is a nonstop, like you spend just as much time trying to keep those suckers out of trouble and on the straight and narrow as you do coaching them how to sack the quarterback. I mean, grade issues, it doesn't matter, okay?
All right.
D-line, every D-line room in America has this problem. This is not unique to Colorado or anybody else. Pick Ole Miss across the street,
even Alabama?
Mississippi State, Alabama, wherever.
Okay.
Defensive line traditionally across the history of football is, we can call it my good friend Chris Kiffin, get him on the show. I don't know if he can legally do it anymore, but he's in the NFL dealing with it. He would tell me stories about guys that you wouldn't even think. He's like, it's just drama all the time. Okay. I coach the second most drama, which is the receiver position.
Yeah. Because
everybody wants to catch 87 passes. Okay. If they don't get theirs, they pout. And then they don't want to go play hard. It happens in the NFL. As much as I love him, A.J. Brown's crying and complaining in the first round of the playoffs because he didn't get enough touches.
Yeah.
But you want him to be like that. You want him to be competitive.
Yeah.
He just didn't get touches because they're running it down the Giants' throat, right?
Right.
But the fact that all these blue check marks are coming out here and trying to make this some kind of political deal, and I can't believe they were trying to there were people trying to accuse him of turning on his own race. I mean, it got silly. It got silly. Like, Deion, you just keep doing your thing. He just said that he was trying to make a joke. But but you know what?
And he just got through being one of maybe the most vocal advocate for HBCUs. How can you then turn around and go, you're
I was just like, preach it, Deion. I was for him, man.
Well, here's
you
know my thing here. Because I told you this. I said, can you imagine if a white coach had said that? They'd have killed him. But if a white coach had said the same thing joking around, he would have literally would get killed. As a society, man, we've got to go back to having a little bit of a sense of humor, okay? We got to be able to laugh a little bit, make fun of ourselves a little bit. Deion's proven at Colorado, whether he wins or loses, we'll see.
Yeah.
But he's proven at Colorado that Deion is in the scoreboard business. I don't think Deion cares whether he's got 85 white guys, 85 black guys, 85 Hispanic guys, or some combination thereof. Deion very clearly is trying to do what it takes to win.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying he's going to win, and I'm not saying he's not going to win. But if you can't listen to an argument, to a conversation that he has with his buddy, Rich Eisen, they've known each other a long time. They're friends. Rich Eisen's a white guy. Deion's a black guy. And they're having a conversation in which Deion's cracking jokes. If you can't listen to that and go, it's funny, whatever, there's a little bit of truth in stuff, it's all right.
Yeah. But if you know we started this whole podcast talking about the NFL, right?
Yep.
Do you know what they ask you when you come in? Hey, does he have a 2-parent home or 1-parent home?
Yep.
Where did Deion come from?
NFL.
Big NFL background. They ask all those questions.
Yeah, because they want to know.
They want to know
what are we dealing with?
You gotta know
who he is.
Yeah,
Where's he from?
You gotta know
what makes him tick. What are his weaknesses? What are the things that if it happens he can't respond to it? What are the things that he responds positively to? Is this a guy that I can MF, or is this a guy that when it's bad, when he I've got to put an arm around him, I got to love him back? What am I dealing with here? And you only find out those things by finding out where someone's from.
Yeah.
And someone who's from a single parent home in an impoverished area is probably going to have a slightly different life outlook
100%
than a young person who comes from a 2-parent home that's super stable. Dad's there every night, and mom's got dinner on the table at 6:15. There's differences, man. And I'm not saying anybody's better or worse or anything like that, but there's differences. And if you're in the NFL and you're in the business of we got to win games because to keep our jobs, we got to win games. We're paying these people a lot of money. We're making investments. We got to know who we're investing in.
All right, and I will finish on this. You brought up, and I didn't even have this to talk about, but you just hit a very, very true point here. When I recruited kids, Neal, I'm a receivers coach, okay? The way I coached is I coached hard. I did. I coached hard. I put my thumb on them, okay? And I coached very difficult. I mean, I could be ornery at times. So I had to, when I went to go recruit a kid, whether he came from a 2-parent home or he came from a 1-parent home, it did not matter. Part of my recruitment of that kid was knowing how he could handle that.
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. This is the last two fresh that came to my mind.
Okay.
Jalen Wayne is a receiver. He was in the Senior Bowl. He was a wide receiver from South Alabama. I recruited him, single parent home from the mom. All right. You know what mother did for a living? She was the military ROTC officer on campus at South Alabama. She rode his ass like Zorro. She rode him hard. Well, you know what that told me?
He could handle it.
He could handle it.
He was used to it. He might even thrive in it.
Correct. So
right.
I could coach him hard and get the best out of him.
Right.
All right. Jordan McCready was a receiver that we had there. Okay. He's another one that pops in my head. Single parent home, except this time the parent was a dad. Okay. Dad thumb all on him, very strict, very hard, very regiment, made him work out. I knew what I was getting with those kids.
Yeah.
Now, on the contrary, this was over a course of my career. Early in my career, I remember recruiting a kid that was very, very, very talented. Okay. Very talented. and did not have mom or dad. His grandparents raised him. Okay, his grandparents were 70-something years old, and his mom and dad were in jail. Dad wasn't in the picture. Mom was in jail. So grandparents raised him from a very early age, but they already had their kids. They let this kid get away with anything he wanted to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't dealing with any kind of direction. And so I took him, we signed him, but when I coached that kid, if I got on, and I knew this in his background, if I got on him and coached him hard, he would shut down. I couldn't get anything out of him. So you have to understand their background to be able to understand, like, what have they been getting for the last 18 years? So when you go to coach them and you're trying to get the best out of them, you know what they respond to. That particular kid, at first I was rah, 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 and I was 28 years old, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I was rah, 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 dude, shut down. I'm talking about couldn't get anything out of him.
Sure.
But instead of going, he bust a route. Instead of going, gosh dang it, didn't say anything. He comes over there, put my arm around him, and say, hey, man, what you got on that route? It's like, Coach, I know I got a curl. Hey, you know what to do. Let's go, Big Daddy. And it's the same kid that comes from like that, it's a whole different approach.
Of course.
And so part of being a coach and running a program is knowing how to take your players and motivating them to make them their best. That's the secret to coaching. That's what you pay money for in coaching. That's why Nick Saban is the best, because he does the exact same thing. He goes as deep as getting a psychology guy to come in there and tell him that, hey, this is how this guy is. Cyrus Jones was one in Alabama that he could not rip his ass. He had to treat him differently, and he got the best out of him. The trick to being a successful coach, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, or whatever, okay, is to be able to coach your kids and be able to motivate them and whatever makes them tick and make them the best that they can possibly be. And that's a big part of it, is understanding where they came from.
Sure.
All right, we'll wrap it up there, homie. You got anything else?
No, I think we're good. Appreciate everybody being part of the show. Again, sorry for a little bit of an abbreviated one. I screwed something up. It's all good. There's a beer garden up, by the way, on the site with former Major Leaguer John Lieber. He was going to be a guest on tonight's show, but somebody, I don't want to name names. Somebody forgot to hit the record button. But I did get the audio. So,
hey, real quick before we go,
good.
I'm not going to discuss it, but the UFC 285, I know you're excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Will you please, just for your boy, will you please, even if you got to record it, watch a little bit of the prelims this week? This is the biggest pay-per-view in a long time.
Yeah, just remind me when it is.
Saturday night, 5:00.
Okay.
I'm going to text you.
All right.
It's a great card.
All right. So for Tyler, I'm Neal. Again, our thanks to the fine people at Reign for making this show possible. Reign Total Body Fuel, 300 milligrams of natural caffeine, BCAAs, electrolytes, zero sugar. It's got what you need to push the limits and achieve your goals. Check them out on Instagram at Reign Body Fuel to learn more. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the show. And until then, have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Talk to you soon. Bye.